The Lux invaded Earth easily, finding victory in not even hours. The nuclear weapons, the years of history and war tactics, the struggle of the human people to rise up from caveman to the modern day, it all meant nothing in the face of intergalactic godlike beings. The nuclear weapons meant nothing when the laws of the atom were changed in a heartbeat, resulting in a burst of confetti and condescending laughter of the responsible Lux. The worst part? Only 3 invaded Earth, squashing any resistance so easily. The generals and the soldiers, they'd look to you and tell you that it was like fighting a trio of gods, a hopeless battle for dominance over the universe itself. Then came the worst news any human had heard. This species of gods, they weren't limited in numbers to being countable on just one hand. There were millions, billions even. A representative once asked just how many there were, and they were told, word for word, at least a couple septendecillion, if you count the Floresian quarterfield. Whatever that meant. Now, granted some knowledge of the history of the Lux, humanity found out that the Lux were like this from the beginning of time. They started as rule-shattering gods. Then came alluring news. Information spread like wildfire throughout humanity about it. The Lux, they didn't do this out of spite, nor a wish to conquer and own, but to make the life of the layman better. To remove responsibility, provide for every want and need. To make sure they'd never need struggle again. It was all fancy talk. For what they wished to do was domesticate humanity, own people like pets. The people lashed out, refusing to just become an obedient slave, but what choice did they have? They stood against stronger, smarter foes, an enemy who had unlocked the secret of the universe, and broke the rules as if they were on a playground. What does a pet do when they do not wish to be owned? They lash out even harder, hostile and harsh. What happens to a hostile, disobedient pet? They get put down. It was miraculous, the fact that they were allowed to gather before the day of reckoning, allowed one singular attempt against a council of Lux to prove they were worth keeping. They were not threatened with extinction, but with a more creative punishment. To be put into a hive mind and have humanity lose any distinction between each other. They weren't the first the Lux had done this to. It was common across the universe, hundreds of once proud species reduced to an ant colony. And throughout the whole way, the whole time, the Lux thought they were in the right for doing so. The chosen emissary gripped his papers in his hand, stress and anxiety swirling throughout him. It was a lost cause, everyone knew that. Hundreds before him tried to do the same thing he was about to do, and they all failed. The man walked through the comically oversized door, finding an equally large room, only a small corner of it in use, filled with human-like Lux, their skin glowing in a myriad of colours. This form was a lie, the Lux actually being monstrous giants, akin to how the angels were described in the Bible. He took a stand behind the podium, looking up at a select few of the Lux. They were far enough away that he should need to yell for them to hear him, and despite there not being a microphone or camera in sight, he could tell he had millions of eyes on him, and that everyone could hear him perfectly. He gripped his neatly aligned papers, an entire script on the group of them, all boiling down to a beg for humanity to remain with each his identity. His fingertips trembled as he began reading. With recent events... He stopped. He laid the papers down flat on the podium, taking a deep breath. He looked down at the carefully plotted out script designed to give the best estimated chance of succeeding. He put one finger on the pages and pushed them off the podium. On Earth, humanity has committed multiple atrocities. Auschwitz of Germany, the residential schools of Canada, each a horrible tragedy, always focused on one thing: the erasure or killing of a culture or identity. In today's world, we look back on those times with great pain in our hearts. He took a breath, pausing for a small dramatic effect. But you know what? We learned from those tragedies. bettering ourselves for it. And that's where the Lux and humanity differ. The Lux embrace the killing of entire species, doing it again and again, looking back on it with pride. Whispers erupted from the stands behind him before falling silent through some silent command. "We do not kill any species," one of the Lux in front of him said. "You do. Death is a loss of life, mind, thought. Integrating into a hive mind does not take away the first, but the latter two are ripped away violently. So is it really correct to say that you don't kill them?" More whispers erupted, then once again fell silent. The emissary spoke again. "Further, none of your species have ever experienced death, or the forced loss of self. I can't expect any of you to really understand what it would be like. You all started at the top, gods of the universe with the capability to do everything. Humanity, and many of the others you've destroyed, weren't affronted that luxury." He took another deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "We started with nothing, and clawed our way to the top of our planet, and slowly began to reach further. Along the way we tripped and faltered, but learned from those mistakes. The Lux never did so, never tripping, for there was never a rock to trip over." He knew he had full attention. These beings believed themselves superior and perfect. The first, maybe. But this was the real time they were shown that they were imperfect as everyone else. "Of course, our species will never see eye to eye. We come from such different backgrounds. But we implore every Lux who may be listening. I plead for humanity. Those before us and those who would come after us oppose this idea of indoctrination. Do not kill even more species, no matter how superior you feel you are over them. Thank you for your time." He turned and walked away, leaving the room. Conversation blowing up behind him. He smiled. He had left an impression on them. Perhaps humanity's lucky star had not burned out yet.